Have you ever trusted someone so much that you believed they would protect you even after you were gone, only to realize too late that you gave a wolf the keys to the sheepfold? Have you ever imagined losing everything in a single moment, not because of fate, not because of an accident, but because someone you called family quietly stole it from you? If you have ever wondered how far greed can go and how far a broken heart can rise again, then listen carefully to this story, because once you start, you won't be able to stop thinking about it. A huge glass mansion overlooking the city lights lived a man named Mr., one of the richest businessmen in the country. He owned hotels, tech companies, shipping lines, and half the billboards in the city carried his name. People called him the quiet billionaire because he didn't show off, but everyone knew his power. Behind the power, he had only one true joy in life, his son. Mother had died when he was very young, and since then his father had played both roles, father and mother, protector and teacher. Grew up surrounded by luxury, private schools, bodyguards, imported cars, and vacations in countries most people only saw in movies. But his father never let him forget where they came from. "We started with nothing," would say, looking out at the city. "Money is a guest, character is the owner. Never confuse the two." For many years it was just the two of them in the mansion, the billionaire and his son, the empire and its heir. Then when he was about 17, everything began to change. A woman entered their life like soft perfume and like poison. Her name was, she was beautiful in a sharp way, always perfectly dressed, smiling with just the right amount of sweetness. She met at a charity event, and within months they were seen together everywhere. The newspapers called her the mysterious woman who stole the billionaire's heart. First tried to be polite. He wanted his father to be happy, treated him kindly, brought him gifts, asked about his studies, cooked his favorite dishes sometimes, and called him my dear boy. But sometimes late at night would wake up and hear voices from his father's study. Voice gentle but cold, saying words like shares, transfers, signing authority, and if something ever happens to you. Whenever walked past, the conversation would stop, replaced by warm laughter, as if nothing serious had been said. I moved forward, married in a private ceremony on a cliff near the ocean. The photos were beautiful, but somewhere deep inside felt a small knot of unease. At the wedding dinner, his father placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "You're my only son. Everything I have will one day be yours. We'll be here to help you when I am gone." Smiled lovingly at both of them, but when her eyes met, something in them flickered, like a curtain moving away from a window for just a second, revealing a room you aren't meant to see. Years passed, went to university abroad to study business and finance. He partied sometimes, enjoyed his life, but he never forgot his father's lessons. He was smart, sharp, and surprisingly humble for a billionaire's son. During holidays, he came home and noticed changes. Some old staff had been replaced. His father's longtime lawyer, Mr., was no longer around. "We parted ways," said with a gentle sigh. "Your father needed someone more modern." His place was a new lawyer named, young, slick-haired, always checking his expensive watch and whispering in his ear during board meetings. One winter, when he was in his final year of university, he received a phone call that shattered his world. His father had suffered a massive heart attack in his office. By the time the ambulance arrived, the quiet billionaire's heart had already stopped. Flew home that night, his mind spinning, the sound of the plane's engines merging with the pounding of his grief. At the funeral, cameras flashed, reporters whispered, and men in suits spoke in low voices, but too, everything felt distant. He saw only his father's coffin, the man who had built a kingdom from dust, now returning to dust himself. Wept dramatically, holding a silk handkerchief, leaning on his arm as if she were the most broken soul there. "We must be strong, my son," she said. "Your father trusted us. We will protect what he built." Nodded numbly. In his heart, he still believed her. He still thought they were on the same side. Week later was summoned to his father's main office for the reading of the will. It was a silent, cold room with floor-to-ceiling windows showing the gray city. The new lawyer sat behind a long table, stacks of documents in front of him. Sat beside him in a black dress, eyes red, face pale. A few other executives were there. Cleared his throat and began reading. According to the will, most of the company's shares, properties, and cash would go into a family trust, would be the acting chairwoman and guardian of the estate until turn 30. After that, full control would pass to him. It sounded fair, even generous, felt relieved. His father had planned everything. Even from the grave, he was protecting his son. But then things started to feel wrong. He tried to access the main family account at the bank. The system declined his request. The card that once worked everywhere now flashed a red message, insufficient authorization. He thought it was a technical issue. He called the bank manager, an older man who had known his father. The manager hesitated on the phone, his voice stiff. "I'm sorry, mister, but according to the updated documents, you are no longer a primary signatory on this account. All access has been transferred to Mrs. Cold chill ran through spine. Updated documents, when? Last month, the manager replied. Your father signed a new instruction. We simply followed it. Last month, right before his father's heart attack, right when he was weakest, right when was always by his side. Home confusion twisting into unease into fear. He confronted gently. Why was my authority removed from the account? He asked, looked hurt. Oh my dear, it's just temporary. Your father was worried about security. There were hackers, threats, people targeting the family. He thought it was safer this way until things settled down. Don't worry, you still have everything. It's all for you. She smiled and placed a soft hand on his cheek as if to calm a frightened child. Something had changed in the house. Guards who once reported to him now took orders only from. Old family employees avoided his eyes. He heard whispers when he walked past. Doors that were always open to him were suddenly locked. First real blow came a month later. Received an email from the board of directors. He had been removed from his position as executive heir apparent due to lack of experience and restructuring under new leadership. The new leadership, of course, was, the message ended politely, we will always honor your father's legacy and keep you informed. And he rushed his room. She was sitting calmly at her dressing table, putting on expensive earrings. You removed me from the board, he said through clenched teeth. She sighed softly. You're emotional, you're not ready, the board agreed. This is business. You can't just step in because you're the son. Your father understood that. He said you still need to grow. He would never push me out, argued. He was preparing me. Turned around slowly, eyes no longer warm. He's not here anymore, is he? She said quietly. And the papers he signed speak louder than your feelings. For the first time, saw it clearly. This woman did not see him as family. She saw him as an obstacle. Days turned into a nightmare. The luxury cars were taken away to cut costs. His credit card stopped working. When he tried to get answers, the lawyers replied with cold legal phrases. According to Clause 17, as per the trust structure, under the authority of the acting chairwoman, every road he walked down ended in signature. And came the final strike. One evening, as rain tapped against the tall windows, called him to his father's old study. She sat behind the desk now as if she owned the space. A group of security guards stood near the door. On the table lay a thin folder. She said, we need to talk about your future. He remained standing. I want the truth, he replied. What are you doing with my father's companies? Why are you shutting me out? He opened the folder and slid a document toward him. This is a separation agreement, she said calmly. You will receive a small monthly allowance and a modest apartment under your name. In return, you will sign away all claims to the group in the family trust. No more interference, no more conflict. You'll be comfortable and I will handle the rest. Stared at the papers like they were a snake. Are you insane? This is my father's legacy. I am his only son. Her expression hardened. Your father trusted me. He gave me full power. You're young, emotional, and irresponsible. You'll ruin everything he built. This is the best solution for everyone. He pushed the papers away. I will never sign this. Eyes turned cold as steel. She nodded to the guards. Pack his things, she said. From tonight, he no longer lives here. If he returns without permission, call the police for trespassing. The words hit like bullets. You can't throw me out of my own house, whispered. This is not your house anymore, she replied without looking at him. It's mine. At night, walked out of the glass mansion with one suitcase, a small bag of clothes, and a heavy storm inside his chest. The gates closed behind him with a metallic clang, as if the world he knew had erased him like a mistake. Moved into the modest apartment had arranged, a plain building far from the rich district. The elevator smelled of dust. The walls were stained. The view from his window was not city lights but a cracked parking lot. His monthly allowance arrived with mechanical precision, but it was just enough for rent and food. For the first time in his life, understood what it meant to be powerless. For weeks he lived in a fog of anger and disbelief. He tried calling old friends from the elite circles, but many of them avoided him now. Without his father's name and money, he was suddenly less interesting. The newspapers called the Iron Widow who saved the empire from chaos. They painted as the spoiled son who couldn't handle responsibility. Every headline cut deeper. One night, sitting alone in the dark, opened a small wooden box he had taken from his father's study before being thrown out. Inside was his father's old wristwatch, a heavy silver piece he had worn every day. On the back, something was engraved, for when you are ready to see. He had never noticed that line before. He held the watch up to the light. The glass face reflected his tired eyes. When you are ready to see what? He turned it over again and again until something caught his attention. There was a tiny ridge near the edge, almost invisible. He pressed it, and the back of the watch popped open with a soft click. Inside, under the mechanism, was a folded strip of paper. Hands shook as he unfolded it. In his father's familiar handwriting, it read, If you're reading this, it means I could not protect you as long as I hoped. Trust no one who rushes you to sign. Do not believe every will you hear. The true documents are stored where your mother's memories sleep. Find, he knows. His heart pounded. The old lawyer who had mysteriously retired. And where your mother's memories sleep, that could only mean one place. The small house where they used to live before becoming rich, the old neighborhood he had almost forgot. For the first time since losing everything, felt something other than helplessness. He felt a direction, a mission. Next morning he traveled by bus to the old part of town. The streets were narrow, crowded, noisy, full of smells and colors. Children played in puddles. Vendors shouted about fresh vegetables and cheap clothes. It was nothing like the polished world he grew up in, but strangely it felt more real. The house where he had spent his early childhood was still there, though older and cracked. The current tenants were surprised when a well-dressed young man asked to see the back room. With a small payment and a sad smile, they let him in. The back room, the paint was peeling. Remembered his mother's laughter here, the way she used to sing while cleaning. He walked to the corner where an old wooden wardrobe once stood. The wardrobe was gone, but the wall behind it had a faint rectangular mark. He touched it and felt a loose brick. His fingers dug in, pulling it out. Behind the brick was a small metal box. His heart hammered as he opened it. Inside were several documents, sealed in plastic to protect them from dust. One was a copy of an older will, written years before it appeared. In that will, everything from the companies to the properties was clearly left to with a trust for charity. No mention of. Another document was a series of letters between and discussing concerns about its intentions and plans to create a backup set of legal instructions in case something happened suddenly. There were also account numbers, evidence of money being moved into separate foundations his stepmother didn't know about. Felt a mix of grief and anger. His father had seen the danger but hadn't had enough time to execute his final plan properly. Must have pressured him, manipulated him, maybe even forged or forced signatures when he was weak. He knew what he had to do next: find. Vanished from public view after leaving the group. It took weeks of searching, calling old contacts, and following tiny clues. During this time, money ran low. He did odd jobs delivering packages, tutoring students, working late shifts at a small just to pay rent. It was humiliating for a former billionaire's son, but it hardened him. He learned how ordinary people survived. He learned to value every coin, and in the quiet hours after work, he studied. He read books on law, business, corporate fraud. He needed to understand the battlefield. One rainy evening in a crowded neighborhood far from the city center, finally found, the old lawyer was living in a modest apartment, his one sharp suit replaced by simple clothes. At first, hesitated to open the door, but when he saw holding the old watch and the hidden documents, his eyes filled with tears. "Your father was right about you," said, his voice trembling. "He said if anyone could fight back, it would be you." He spoke for hours, revealed everything, how it slowly isolated, fired loyal staff, hired her own people, and convinced him to sign temporary documents during a health scare. How she had arranged for a new will to be drafted, one that gave her full control under the excuse of protecting the estate. How when questioned her, she threatened to ruin his career and spread lies about him. Fearing for his safety, he had left quietly, trusting that would eventually see her true face. But death came first. Now, sitting in that dim apartment, realized the scale of the betrayal. It was not just greed. It was a carefully planned theft wrapped in legal language and fake concern. "What can we do?" asked. "She has the companies, the lawyers, the board, the media. I have nothing." Leaned forward, eyes sharp again. "You have more than you think," he said. "You have the original backup will. You have proof of her manipulation. And most importantly, you have the truth. The law may be slow, but it is not blind if you force it to see." Began to work in secret, contacted a small group of independent lawyers who hated corporate corruption, collected more evidence, bank statements, emails, messages from old employees who had seen strange things. Some were afraid to speak, but a few were brave, especially when they learned that himself had doubted. Plan was risky. They would file a case to challenge the will, accusing of fraud, coercion, and embezzlement. To win, they needed one more thing: proof that had not willingly removed his son from control. That proof came from an unexpected source. One night as walked home from a black car slowed beside him. For a moment he thought it might be Smin, but the window rolled down and he saw the face of someone he recognized, Mr., his father's former driver. "Get in," said urgently. "We need to talk." A quiet park under a broken streetlight confessed that he had been there on the night when signed the updated documents, had been weak, barely conscious in a hospital bed, and had pushed the papers in front of him, whispering that it was just a security measure, had hesitated. "What about?" he had murmured, had smiled and said, "It's all for him, darling. This is just temporary." Too tired to read, too trusting, he signed. Been asked to leave the room but had seen enough. Guilt had eaten at him for months. When he saw the news about being removed from the company, he realized he had witnessed a crime. Now he was ready to testify. His testimony, the hidden will, the secret documents, and story, and his small legal team finally filed the case. As soon as the lawsuit became public, it exploded across the media. Billionaire son accuses stepmother of stealing empire. Heir versus widow, family war begins. Was the quiet billionaire's will forged? Responded with rage, she called a press conference, crying on camera, accusing of being an ungrateful, greedy child trying to destroy his father's wife. Her lawyers painted him as unstable, reckless, and even suggested he had mental issues. But for every lie she threw, countered with evidence. Court hearings were long and brutal. Arrived each day in designer clothes, surrounded by bodyguards and top-tier attorneys. Came in a simple suit he had bought with his own money, walking beside like a soldier beside an old general. Inside the courtroom, every word mattered. Every document was examined. Every memory of last months was brought back to life. There were moments when it seemed hopeless. Some judges looked skeptical. Some witnesses were too afraid to speak. Lawyers tried to delay the case again and again. Money can bend time, and she had plenty of it. Refused to break. Each night he studied more. Each morning he woke with a single thought: I am my father's son. I will not let her rewrite his story. Turning point came when presented the hidden will and the handwritten note from inside the watch. The courtroom became completely silent as the judge read words. If you're reading this, it means I could not protect you. Trust no one who rushes you to sign. The true documents are stored where your mother's memories sleep. It was like himself had walked into the room to speak. Face went pale. Her lawyers argued that the note was fake, but handwriting experts confirmed it was real. When gave his testimony about the hospital night, voice shaking, eyes full of regret, the final cracks appeared in his defense. Under pressure, one of her own allies, the slick lawyer, made a mistake. He tried to secretly contact his team, offering a deal. If they dropped the case, he would help return some assets. Recorded the conversation. When this recording was played in court, revealing that the documents were not exactly clean, the judge's patience finally snapped. The final ruling, the court declared that the most recent will and the asset transfers were tainted by coercion and fraud. The older will, the one stored in the hidden box, was recognized as the valid one. Control of the group and the family trust was restored to as the rightful heir, was ordered to step down from all positions, return misappropriated funds, and face criminal investigation for her role in the scheme. When the verdict was announced, closed his eyes. For a moment he heard his father's voice again, calm and proud. Money is a guest, character is the owner. He had lost everything once, but through patience, courage, and hard work he had fought back, not just for the money but for the truth. Tried to flee the country, but the authorities stopped her at the airport. The photos of her, once glamorous and powerful, now desperate and angry, appeared on the same front pages that had once praised her. The same reporters who had repeated her lies now called her the widow who tried to steal an empire. For revenge was not the goal. He didn't celebrate her downfall. Instead, he walked alone to his father's grave one evening, long after the noise had faded. He stood there quietly, the old watch on his wrist, the same sky above them both. "I was blind," he whispered. "I thought being your son was enough. I thought the money would always protect me, but I had to lose everything to understand what you were really trying to teach me. You didn't just leave me companies. You left me a chance to choose who I would become." From that day on, ran the group with a completely different mindset. He rehired loyal staff who had been pushed out. He created transparent systems so no one, not even himself, could misuse power so easily again. He set up funds for employees' families, donated to schools in poor neighborhoods, and invested in ethical businesses instead of quick-profit schemes. The media called him the heir who rebuilt more than just wealth. He kept the modest apartment for a while as a reminder of where he had been. Sometimes after long meetings, he would go back there, sit by the small window, and remember the nights when he had felt completely lost. It kept him humble. It kept him real. Your listener's story is not just about a rich boy losing and regaining billions. It is about how quickly trust can be betrayed when you close your eyes. It is about how documents can lie while handwriting from the heart tells the truth. It is about how greed wears pretty faces and uses soft words like protection and temporary while quietly taking everything from you. More than that, it is about how a broken person can rise again, stronger than before, when they choose discipline over despair, action over self-pity, and truth over comfort. Maybe you are not the child of a billionaire. Maybe you have never seen millions in your bank account. But in your own way, you also have something valuable: your time, your talent, your trust, your heart. Be careful who you hand those to. Not everyone who calls you family or friend deserves the keys to your future. Some people are like they smile while they study where to cut. Some situations are like those fake documents. They look safe until you read the fine print. If you ever lose everything, your job, your relationship, your reputation, remember walking out of the mansion with just a suitcase and a watch. At that moment, he thought his life was over. But hidden in that watch was a message, and hidden in his pain was a new version of himself waiting to be born. Sometimes life takes away what you're leaning on so that you will learn to stand on your own feet. You may not find a secret will in a wall, but you can find strength in knowledge, allies in honest people, and power in refusing to give up. You can study, you can work, you can gather small pieces of truth until they are strong enough to break the biggest lies. But if you're listening to this and feeling betrayed, defeated, or cheated by someone you trusted, let this story be a reminder. The game is not over unless you walk off the field. You still have moves left. You still have choices. You still have the chance to rebuild not just what you lost, but something better, built this time on wisdom instead of innocence. When you finally win, not by becoming